What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks podcast. This show features short interviews that you can listen during the halftime of your favorite sports events. Every Tuesday, I host fun conversations with talented people in the sports industry where we'll learn from their stories, knowledge, and experiences. So go grab your favorite snack and come snack with us. Are you ready? Let's go! Today's episode features an expert in high-performance sports events, strategy, and venue operations. Our guest has been involved in sports as an elite athlete, instructor, and strategist throughout his life. His experience includes advising Adidas, venue management for the Euro 2020, operations for the FIFA World Cup of 2022, and more projects worldwide. I'm confident that this will be a fun and entertaining episode, so go grab some snacks and join us. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Astley.
What an introduction. Thank you very much.
No, Paul, thank you for accepting my invitation to join me in a conversation on the Halftime Snacks. Let's kick it off with a fun icebreaker. And the one I have for you, Paul, is the following. If you could hang out with any fictional character, who would you choose and why?
Oh, man. I thought you were going to ask me the easy one about what's your favorite ice cream flavor. And I know the answer to that one right away. Fictional character. I think it'd probably be one of the Marvel characters, actually. Probably Deadpool. Is that Marvel or is it DC? I'm not too sure. I think it's Marvel.
I think it's Marvel. Yeah.
I mean, Deadpool. He's such a funny guy, and the character and the films are so entertaining. So I think that would be quite a good laugh, actually.
Yeah, actually, he's hilarious, and I think it would be a really good one. I didn't thought about him, but it's a good one that you chose, Paul. Let's talk a little bit more about maybe you and your background. And you've been working in sports planning, event or organization, logistics, operations, and everything. I wonder if you maybe can just in 1 or 2 minutes define exactly what the culture of the people and the companies that plan, operate, and organize those type of events are. What is the culture? What people work like? What's the language and the vibe and the environment? Just tell us about the culture.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I've worked out of the UK more than I have in the UK. So I've worked in the Middle East and now more recently in Germany, back in Europe, and certainly the projects that I've been involved with probably have got one common sort of denominator in the people, and that's passion and the energy to get the job done. You know, with major events, it's obviously a very defined project with a very defined endpoint, which is obviously the delivery of the event. And certainly all the events that I've worked on, the people have been absolutely dedicated to making sure the event runs well and is successful. So I think that's probably essentially the one common theme throughout all of these events is just the passion and the determination to make the event work and to be successful.
How about you take us back to that first moment in your career that you can remember, of course, when you first kind of like encountered that culture and you were 100% sure that matched your personality in one way or another?
You know what? I remember that time so well because it was in 2005 when I joined the organizing committee for the Asian Games in Qatar. And the Asian Games were going to be held in 2006. And for those that the Asian Games, and many people don't know the Asian Games, but it's a massive event. It's only second pretty much to the Olympics in terms of the number of athletes. And I joined the organizing committee, and from day one, I was just amazed again by the passion of the people, the values, the ability as well in terms of the expertise and the knowledge. And I was just blown away by the energy in the office every single day. And going into these planning meetings, and you know, with major events, obviously you go through planning cycles where revisions are done of the venues and the process and the planning manuals. And every single meeting was just high energy. Let's get this thing done. There were very few conflicts, if you want to call them that, or arguments. And I know it sounds corny and cliche, but it was real teamwork all the way through. And then, of course, when you do the event, in a way, that's a bit of an anticlimax, because you've been working towards that point for a couple of years, pretty much full time. The event comes along, it takes a month to get through, it's all finished, and then you go into the post-event blues. And certainly I know about that, and my wife knows about that as well, because it hits me every single time.
Yeah, so this is something actually I wanted to discuss with you. So events, when we're talking about events, most people just think about the time that's happening, the duration of the event, right? For instance, the Olympics is a little bit less than a month
Mm,
or a month, and the World Cup is also a month.
mhm,
But from the other side, from your side, from planning it and organizing and operations and everything, it takes a lot more. So probably the event itself is just a very, very tiny piece of the roadmap along, what's happening in the plan and in
mm,
everything that's going on.
yes.
So I wonder if you could just give us, the roadmap. How does it look like for planning and organizing a major sports competition,
Mm,
from the bird's eye view? From the top. How exactly do you think about what, like, how much time it's needed for each stage,
mm.
and where do you think you'll need to put most of your energy or your focus? What are the most, like, important things? Just guide us through the roadmap of what the whole process
Mm.
looks like before, during, and after.
Yeah. It's a difficult one to sort of define in a general way, because it really depends on the country where the event might be taking place, the resources the country has, and also obviously the event itself. So I mean, for a major event, in terms of the bidding process that goes on for it could be 10 years plus before the event itself. So as you may have seen, Saudi Arabia's just made their intention clear for Expo 2030. So that's 9 years out, and they will start to be putting a team together now in order to get the pre-bid done and the bidding documents written. And then I guess probably from about what once they've been, or once the country or city have been confirmed as the host for that event, then it's full speed ahead in terms of getting an operational team together, and that sort of ramps up anywhere from 6 years out, and then sort of gains pace up to sort of 2 years, 18 months out of the event itself. And then I guess within the last 18 months of the event, that's where you start to get the people on the ground in the offices doing their planning, and really putting the detail into the operational manuals, and making sure everything's going to go right. And then, as you said, Ron, is completely true, that the event itself is actually quite a minor part of the whole process, because the guys in the office have been planning it for so many years, in some cases, and they've rehearsed it, either on through tabletop exercises, or actual rehearsals itself. They've gone through the planning manuals with a toothpick, and then all of a sudden the event comes, and it's, oh, okay, hopefully it runs fine. And I mean, we had a few challenges at the Euros back in June, July in Munich, but these sort of challenges do come up. But hopefully it runs fine, and it actually sort of goes through, and then that's it. And then all of a sudden, the closing ceremony comes along, and it goes from 100 miles an hour to zero overnight. so, that's the tricky part.
Paul, I'm very curious, to ask you, what do you think, or how valuable it really is to know how to manage and work with other people, and be able to trust other people. I guess that when it comes to
Mm,
such macro events, it is really a lot about delegating and allowing others to do other things, that you trust them that they will execute. So I wonder if there's specific, like, types of work that you are excellent at doing, and you don't really go out of that limit and do and execute it, and also, like, like tell me, I want to know if you can
Mm,
tell us a little bit about that, element of trusting others to do their job and deliver, on time and
mm.
everything. Like, how's that dynamic inside the planning and the whole operation behind it?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's sort of one of the major differences between working in events where there's a definite project end, which is obviously the event, as opposed to working in a large corporation, which I'm doing now at Adidas. It's a very different atmosphere. And as you said, which is 100% correct, Ronan, is the trust you place on your people with major events. The trust has to be there, and the space has to be there for them to do their jobs. And then, of course, the support from the leadership has to be there for the people to do their work with the events, because you don't have time to manage and to, I guess develop is the wrong word, but you don't have time to go through this sort of developmental stage with staff, because they should be pretty much on point as soon as they arrive at the event. Um, so it's a difficult one. I think that the organizing committees I've worked for have all had really good people within their functional areas. They've had experts within their own right, so they've got the abilities to go out and start planning and operating the event from zero. And really, the leadership is really there to keep an overview, a bird's eye view on the operations and on the processes. They're there to shake hands with the delegates and the VIPs and do all the nice sort of entertaining hospitality stuff.
Yeah.
But really, the people on the ground, should have been given the space and the empowerment to go ahead and do their job. With large corporations and sort of long-term jobs, if you want to call them that, career jobs, that does happen, but it's a much slower process, and people are given space, but it feels different to project work. It feels different to major events. It's nowhere near as exciting. Definitely not.
I don't know if you watched this documentary on Netflix called Fire Festival, which is
Mm.
about a specific event that was supposed to happen in the Bahamas, I believe, about this EDM festival or something, and
Yeah.
everything went wrong.
Yeah.
Planning was so bad. Marketing was great, but planning was so bad, and of course, it was a disaster. I wonder if you have like a similar experience. Not that it ended in a disaster, right? That probably is like the most extreme example. By the way, if you guys haven't heard of that documentary, I do recommend it. It's super interesting. But Paul, I wonder if there's any specific story that you have or that you can tell us, or an experience that kind of like things were not working at all, or were about to, become catastrophic and a disaster. And I wonder if you can share with us like how you reacted, or how exactly the team saved the event from becoming, an absolute disaster or something similar. Is there anything that you can think about real quick that remind you of a similar story?
Um, there is, yeah. I mean, I'll need to be a little bit careful with the details like I give away, but I was involved with a very large event in Saudi Arabia a couple of years ago, and it was in Riyadh, and it was one of these events that hadn't really been hosted before by the Saudis. And for those listeners that have been to Saudi Arabia, you can sort of appreciate what I'm going to say, because 10 years ago Saudi was a very closed, well, yeah, I guess closed, controlled society. It's now opening up hugely. There's still a lot of improvements to be done in terms of human rights and all this sort of stuff, but it is heading in the right direction. And I was involved in an event there where we just didn't expect the number of people to come, and we were hosting a number of concerts, music concerts, and also sporting events as well. And the music concerts had stars like Pitbull, Lil Wayne, and these sort of hardcore artists, if you want to call them that. And we had 60,000 young Saudi youths, young people, if you want to call them that, some 20 to 30-year-olds, and they descended on us, and we just weren't prepared for sort of the arrival profile of the ticket holders. And we came to a point where the entrances, where we do the security checks, were getting overrun. So luckily we had some really good experienced crowd control guys on our team. And we came up with a contingency plan very quickly. The local authorities were ultra cooperative, which again was a surprise to me, but the local security services were fantastic. And we all worked together, and you know, luckily no one was hurt or injured. And actually probably the spectators didn't even notice that we were scrambling behind the scenes. They had a little bit of a delay getting in, but we got everyone in and out very quickly. But that was a really hairy moment. It was really hairy.
It's interesting how the team behind the event, I probably think that they don't get enough credit, right? Because they're really doing an awesome job, and even, you know, making this not even look like it was something that, you know, came out of nowhere or happened out of a sudden. They still managed. I mean, you guys still managed to figure it out, and I feel like it happens more times that we even imagine in events that we attend, like games that we go and concerts and stuff. But we don't even realize it because the event planning and the operations behind it are just so good at reacting and having, you know, contingency plans and everything. So and that takes me to the next topic that I want to discuss with you, Paul, which is COVID-19, the pandemic. This one was totally, you know, unexpected, and of course brought challenges to events that we weren't expecting. You know, right? Like social distancing and how to keep the facilities clean and everything. I wonder if you can share with us maybe the inside look of how that went on for the people organizing and the operations and logistics behind events. Are there any things, two or three challenges that you can share with us that maybe fans or spectators may not think existed in live events during the pandemic? And if you can think of those, maybe also share with us how you guys went about and solved those challenges.
Yeah, COVID. That's the subject of the last couple of years, I think, for all of us, isn't it? I think all of us are now near experts on this. It's a good question, and a lot of planning goes on behind the scenes. I was involved with a project in Qatar, writing a manual for the World Cup for Qatar 2022, in terms of reintroducing spectators to events, and not only the World Cup but also other events within Qatar. So the company I was contracted with, we wrote we called it a playbook, which was a manual, an operational manual, a planning manual, and it documented how they should be integrating COVID measures within their planning. So it's not the most exciting of subjects, but it's very relevant. And a few of the challenges that we came across was we finished the project. When was it? In December 2020. We handed over the manual to the client. We were then due to do some online courses and seminars, and that was due to happen in February, March time. By the time we got to March, the manual was out of date. So that's one challenge, because the situation was changing so quickly. We pretty much had to update the manual on the spot and make it relevant for the time that we were talking about. So that's the challenge in terms of the changing situation. The other one that maybe spectators or attendees at events don't realize is that a lot of planning goes on, not only at the event itself, but also in terms of the customer journey. So how they get from their house, on public transport, where they walk, where the physical distancing might take place, where possible touch points are, and all that is planned out from pretty much when they leave their house. So, for example, in Qatar, we were talking to the metro provider and the bus providers, taxi, Uber. It has other names in Qatar as well. Uber is one of them. And we were talking to them about reducing capacities, reducing the train times, and all this sort of stuff that actually people don't realize is going on. in conjunction with that, there was a lot of nudging going on in terms of messaging, subliminal messaging for spectators, and that was due, that was anything from, obvious stuff like remember to wash your hands, keep physical distance, and all the rest of it, but also more sort of subtle messaging, which would in effect stretch out the people walking into the stadium, the ingress and the egress of the venue. Keeping entertainment going on after, for example, a football match, instead of everyone standing up and going, having entertainment going on, so to slow the egress down. So there's a lot of those sort of subtleties going on behind the scenes that non-event people wouldn't even realize. They would just think, hey, this is part of the show, this is great, they got entertainment, they got films going on at big giant screens. Well, actually it's a tactic to slow the egress down. But amongst us who worked on events before, people would spot that from a mile off. So yeah.
So I'm gonna go out and put out a bold statement. You correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like event planners and operational managers like yourself are also kind of like brand developers and people that through the customer journey build a specific association in the customer or the fan's brain that will relate it to the brand eventually. And probably you can share with us maybe a little bit more about your experience with Adidas, which I feel is might be relevant for this specific point. Like, how closely do you work with like brand managers with Adidas for your work there? Maybe share also a little bit of what you do there with them and how you think about this customer journey experience. I understand that probably you are with them, assessing them on the journey on the stores and everything that happens on stores worldwide. So maybe share with us what you do with Adidas, how that relates, or how do you work with brand managers for that specific case, and just share with us
Yeah.
maybe extra points that come to mind.
Sure, yeah. My role with Adidas now is gone off a bit of a tangent, I must admit. I'm now with what we call Adidas Protection, which is we take care of obviously the physical security of the premises, but also we take care of event security, travel management, crisis management, and these sort of aspects. So I'm the first one to admit I'm not a brand specialist. I'm not a marketing specialist. I'm very much an operational event specialist.
But do you see the
For
connection
sure.
between
Yeah.
brand marketing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
I mean, was I wrong,
No, no,
or there
no.
is?
There's a huge
Okay.
connection, and I think someone in my position needs to know certainly the basics, but we also need to appreciate that the brand of the event or the brand of the product is number one, and that has to be protected, all the way through the process. If you don't have a good brand standing within the market, then obviously customers will go elsewhere, and that's the same, exactly the same for the event as well. So as an operational planner, we're always looking at what the customer would see, what the spectator would see, what the retail customer would see, and that's the face on the community, that's the face on the world. What actually happens behind the scenes, they shouldn't even be seeing or have knowledge of. So my role with Adidas is really to help the other departments, which includes the brand management department as well, and all the other markets, to make sure that what they portray is backed up by a safe process, in terms of the staff being safe, the visitors being safe, and obviously the customers as well, and coming out with a decent experience. But sorry, Ronan, I'm not a brand person, as you probably realize.
Maybe you are in very specific ways, meaning that on the side probably that Adidas wants to be a safe place. That's probably also related to the brand. So you are part of like, you're responsible of building that for them, if that makes any sense. So I would associate that with a
Yeah,
brand.
for sure. I think I think everyone who works for Adidas, which I think is, probably about between 50 and 60,000 people worldwide, we're all brand ambassadors. We all represent the
Right.
brand,
Correct.
and that's what every day we need to remember, whether we like the corporate machine or not, or whether we like the hype of Adidas or hype of Nike or hype of Puma,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. That's part of our role, and
Yeah.
and when we step out, I'm wearing Adidas clothing now. When we step out in the wide world, we need to be an ambassador for the brand, and
Correct.
that's really important.
Yeah, I just feel like probably you're, since you're like on the experiential side of the brand or of the event itself, just going back also on your work on the Euro and
Mm,
everything, for also FIFA, like since you're in the experiential side, like those subtleties that you were mentioning, those are like kind of like key to create impressions, because they're just so vivid on the eyes of the fan and on the customer, that I think that it creates an interesting impact. And I want to jump maybe a little bit on the technology side of operations and logistics behind sporting
mm.
events. You mentioned you started in operations in 2005. When you mentioned that story at the beginning,
Yeah.
how have you seen technology evolve the operations
Mm.
and logistics sides of sporting
you
events?
you wouldn't believe how it's progressed in the last 15-20 years. It's unbelievable. I mean, going back to the Asian Games in 2005, 2006, what one of the things I remember is these planning meetings with, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 people from each of the function areas. So you'd have transport, security, protocols, ceremonies, whoever it might be, around a table, and we would have these A0 paper CADs of the venue on the table of each level. So maybe you'd have, I don't know, 8 or 9 CADs on the table, and everyone would be poring over them and making adjustments and pencil marks. The venue manager, who is sort of the overall coordinator, would be taking down notes like crazy. A week or 2 later, the adjustments, you come back and you review them again. So now what's happening nowadays, and what happened at the Euros, is they have some great electronic tools where that pad processed, with on your laptop, on your iPad, or on your phone even, where you could have the plans for the venue on your laptop, and you could change them. Well, certain people could change them who have rights, but you could change the location of a barricade. You could change the location of a traffic cone, or a signage element, or a marketing element, or whatever it might be. And you do it electronically, and everyone sees it real time. So that's a really simple example of how it's progressed. We didn't, at the Euros in Munich. I don't think we printed out. We didn't print out any CADs nowadays. It's all done electronically, or online, on the cloud. So that's one big step up from when I first went into the industry. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners would be able to appreciate that, and they would have examples like that as well.
No, I feel like the elements of collaboration and like all the technology that helps us work with other people and align other people in like the goals and things that you are currently working. I mean, because event planning is just a work that involves just so many people, and everyone has to like be aligned, like keeping everyone aligned on like the
Mm.
same ideas and concepts that you guys are planning. I guess that is a big leap that you probably appreciate more than anyone else out there, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the biggest challenge, is keeping the event team, as you say, aligned and and updated constantly. And now we can do it electronically in real time. It's just such a leap forward. You wouldn't believe. It's fantastic. And I could walk around the Allianz Arena in Munich with my phone and look at the CADs on my phone, and look to see where each of the elements were placed, and rather than going around the stadium with a huge piece of paper in my hands. And obviously, it's more environmentally friendly as well, right? So that's
Yeah,
uh,
that's
that's a
also
good step
true.
forward. It's
Millennials
all
will
important.
appreciate it. Man, it's been such a fun time with you. We've been learning so much about event planning, developments, operations, the whole thing going on behind, how it relates to brands, how do you guys prevent catastrophes like Fire Festival, and like how it may happen, but people don't realize it, and that takes a lot of credit, and I'm sure that you guys deserve it. I can't live without asking you, Paul, a probably more personal question, just to get to know you a little bit closer. Okay, so what would be the first thing you do if you'd be elected president, or I guess that you're in Germany, that's prime minister tomorrow? Is there what would be the first thing that you would do?
Oh man, God, I could be very controversial, or I could play it safe. Um, if I'm going to be controversial, I'd get everyone vaccinated. But if I was going to play safe, oh, I don't know. I think. I mean, I'm not German, but I think the Germans have overall done quite a good job over the last 10 or 15 years or so. I'm not into politics. Live and let live. That's my motto. So, but yeah, I think with this COVID, it needs to be tackled in a different way. Um, when I was in Qatar, they did it in a very straightforward way because because people had to adhere to the rules that the government were coming out with. In Europe and Germany, it's a different case altogether, and it's like treading on eggshells, as we call it here, with people's rights, and which is still really important. However, I just feel with COVID, it just needs to be tackled in a slightly different way.
Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy learning about the business and technology behind sports, make sure you subscribe to the Sports Tech Biz newsletter. I'll leave the link in the show notes. See you all next week. Bye bye.